So Mr. Singley stole some of my thunder, but that's okay. I was gonna say good morning, but I'm time zone challenged. I don't actually know what time it is. I came from Seattle, Washington, so I think it's still morning where I come from, and I think it's still morning here. Greetings to the mayor, former mayor, and all the future mayors sitting in the audience. To our congresswoman and all the future congresswomen out there in the audience. Greetings to our trustees and our chairwoman, Hughes. Greetings to Bishop Alexander and all the future bishops and first husbands in the audience. I also got the instructions to be brief. But I wrote something, and it's very important to me that I follow my own heart so that you all get a sense of not just the great leader that my Uncle Clay is, but the great man he is. I'm Carladenise, Armbrister Edwards, also known as the woman with 4 names. Impressionable. From everyone to whom much has been given, much will be required. And from the one to whom much has been entrusted, even more will be demanded. Luke 12:48. In my family, we have this thing. You know, every family has a thing. Some families have a favorite vacation spot. Every year, no matter what. They go to Martha's Vineyard, they go to the Cayman Islands. Well, that's not us. Some families have a favorite food or a favorite holiday, like Christmas dinner at Great Nana's house. Not us either. Some families have a favorite sport, like politics, maybe running for president. Not us. I do know that family though. Our family's thing is just favorite. If we haven't seen one another for a little while, and you run into somebody on the family, or they call you on this thing, it's called an old-fashioned telephone, we do this thing, we say, oh my goodness, my favorite aunt's on the phone. Or if you see your sister-in-law, you say, hey girl, you know you're my favorite sister-in-law. If you run into your cousin, you say, what's up, cuz? Favorite cuz. And when you see an uncle or an aunt, we say, don't tell the other ones, but you know you're my favorite, right? This is our thing. I know, wouldn't you rather be going to the Bahamas or the Cayman Islands? Well, today, our thing becomes your thing. We all get a chance to say to my favorite uncle, what's up, man? You're my favorite Armbrister, and I truly mean it. Tomorrow, it might be Uncle Leo, or Uncle Rod, or Uncle Dial, but today, it's Uncle Clay. My Uncle Clay is so humble. He's so kind. He's so gracious. I honestly believe he has no idea how impressionable he has been on my life. When I was asked to give a few remarks, less than 3 minutes, about my uncle, I was overjoyed as well as terrified. However, there is no way I can tell you everything I want you to know in less than 3 minutes. That's just not happening. I need at least 3 hours. I promise to be as brief as my great-grandfather, the Reverend Richard Henry Higgs, a Southern Baptist preacher who impressed upon our family the spirit of love, justice, racial harmony, but definitely not timeliness. Clarence Dennis Armbrister is the grandson of the late Reverend Richard Henry Higgs and the third-born son of Leo and Violet Armbrister. Leo Britton Armbrister, my other favorite uncle, who is here with us, and my favorite Aunt Mary, was their firstborn. My father, the late Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Armbrister, was in the middle. Uncle Clay is married to your First Lady, and my other favorite aunt, Denise. In our family, we grew up believing that the descendants of the Higgs and the Armbristers were royalty. My grandparents would tell us stories of how dignified and loyal and civically minded our people were. And they impressed upon us the importance of education, self-respect, and most importantly, the love of God and family. The stories of our ancestors and the love that flowed through the Armbrister household has withstood the test of time. And I know for sure it has had a huge impression on my Uncle Clay, as these stories continue to inspire me and the future generations. Just this week, I was in a meeting in Seattle where I found myself being asked by someone, had I ever met, and then he says, well, I don't actually know you, but I saw your resume in these briefing documents. Are you related to Armbrister? So I assumed he was talking about Clay, because that's typically how these things go. I quickly responded, yeah, Clay, he's my absolute favorite uncle. And he said, oh no, not Clay. I meant Ed Armbrister, the famous baseball player from the Cincinnati Reds. So I was instantly let down because I love making the Clay connections. So I meekly responded, I think so. At least my dad was pretty convinced he was part of our family, and we have his baseball card taped to the desk for all to see. He laughed and he said, wow, you're related to Clay and Ed? You must be hot stuff. We all have the capacity to impress, even if it's just through name association. I'm definitely not hot stuff. I'm just related to hot stuff. But as I look out at this grand audience and on this stage, all of you are hot stuff. You came dressed to impress, and tonight I know the party will be on, or as my kids like to say, lit. The cars, the shoes, the gowns, the fancy socks, the bow ties will become strolling through the doors of the convention center. FYI, for those of you who are in my generation or older, lit doesn't mean high or drunk anymore. It means hot, heavy, cool, like a bag of chips. Impressions are powerful things, but what some people do not realize is that impressions are forever lasting. They can be good or bad. They can instill a sense of pride, or they can rob us of our dignity and feeling of self-worth. My favorite uncle knows this, and he has dedicated his life to taking on roles and responsibilities that aim to impress and uplift and empower, especially those who have not had the fortune that we have had coming from a loving family. As a loving husband and father who has raised 5 beautiful children with 3 grandchildren, as an attorney at one of the most prestigious law firms in Philadelphia, as a public servant who has served as Philadelphia City Treasurer, Chief of Staff to Mayor Nutter, and on numerous boards and commissions, as an educator and an administrator at Temple University, Johns Hopkins University, Girard College, and now, let me see if I get this right, JCSU. My uncle has dedicated his life to giving back to the community and honoring our ancestors, as they well deserve. He honors them by exemplifying the epitome of being a strong, faithful, African-American Bahamian man. What impression will you leave on the community? What impression will you leave on the world? Who's going to call you their favorite, and why? I was kidding when I said I would be as brief as my impressionable great-grandfather. I'm about to wrap up, so don't worry. But I really wanted you to take a moment to reflect on all the things you do and you can do to make a lasting impression on others, the way my favorite uncle has made a significant impression on me, his namesake, his absolute favorite niece, Carladenise, Armbrister Edwards, and the impression he has made on so many people, including the generations of Armbrister Higgs who will come after him. In preparation for today, I asked the next generation, my children, William Barzy and Zora Alexandria, what the word impress meant to them. And this is what they helped me come up with. The I, well, we had a fight in the house. We couldn't decide between inspiring and integrity, but I think clay represents both. M stands for motivated. P stands for purposeful. R is for keeping it real. E reflects Clay's effervescent personality. You know, right? My 13 and 15-year-olds? That's Clay's influence right there. S is for swagger. And the last S I added for all the sage advice he has given me and to others throughout our career journeys. Thank you, Johnson C. Smith, for loving my favorite uncle as much as we do in the Armbrister family, and for affording me the opportunity to brag about him in 3 minutes or less. Ha ha ha. Thank you, congregation, for showing up and for not only working hard to impress people with your graciousness and style, but for remembering to impress others with integrity, your mind, your love, your compassion, and with the kindness that can only come from your heart. Thank you to my ancestors, especially my dad and my brother, my angels in heaven, who continue to give us courage. Thank you to my mom, Juanita, my husband, Herman, and my kids, who are my angels on earth. And then thank you, President Clarence Dennis Armbrister and First Lady Denise McGregor Armbrister for throwing the best parties I've ever been to in life, for always stepping up to lead with dignity, and for being my favorite uncle and aunt today, maybe tomorrow, but don't tell Uncle Leo and Aunt Mary. Thank you all for indulging me and having me here today.